I am going to introduce our speakers, Kellie and Julina. So we've got Julina Hooks from the Department of Defense, and we have Kellie Persson from Procore Technologies. And so I want to hand the mic over to both of you, and I will hand it off to Kellie first, as you are off of mute. And I would love for you to give us a quick introduction here, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll hand the mic over to you, Julina.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Kellie Persson. I am currently working as a senior software engineer for Procore Technologies. I am working with the specialty contractors and marketing team, and we're mostly focused on the subcontractors, so in the field teams.
Perfect. And Julina, you are on mute. And if we didn't say that at least like once during these summits, it wouldn't be a virtual summit, would it?
No, thank you so much for letting me know. I tapped my mic. I thought I tapped my speaker as well. So hi, my name is Julina Hooks. I am an employee with the Department of Defense. Currently right now, I'm based in the Washington, DC area. I work creating data visualization and data analysis tools. And so we really lean into machine learning and natural language processing. I currently lead my own team of developers, and I also lead a team where we focus on future needs and future technologies.
Awesome. Thank you both for such an incredible introduction. And kicking us off here, I would love for you each to talk about a current project that you're working on. And Julina, since you are off mute, I will hand it over to you first.
Thank you. So I would say right now, my favorite project that I'm working on, we are building out a tool that we use natural language processing and machine learning. And so we're looking at how do we streamline and make data analysis easier for our analysts. And so really working in that project, it gets me access to people all across the globe, looking at what are their needs, where are they working, really seeing where those pitfalls are and building out those future capabilities that are going to make their jobs easier.
Fantastic. And Kellie, I will pass the same question to you. So what is a current project that you are working on?
Primarily, I've been working with the time collection portion for the resource management team. And so right now we're in the middle of rolling out. We just completed a multi-tier approval process. We have field workers who are in the field, they're entering their own time, but of course they can't approve their own time. And we just increased the approval process, so it's more of a tiered process, so that it goes from being entered from the field all the way to the back office, so that it can process through payroll correctly. And prior to this, one of the big things that we released was having the automated clock in notifications based on a geofence. So that was really nice. Entering and exiting work sites. Sometimes when you're busy on the go, you forget to clock in and out. And so we were able to introduce the geofencing, which was the first time we've done something like that within our app, that sent automatic notifications. And it definitely, we saw an increase in time collecting from the field.
Okay, that is so interesting. Can you just elaborate on that just a little bit more? So does that mean that like people had a badge when they passed through the geofence that it clocked in and out?
No, actually, so I have my phone here. What we did is we used their devices. So some companies have company issued devices and some have their personal devices. So we needed to make sure that it wasn't a drain on their devices. And also being very cognizant of the fact that if people are using their own personal devices, they are protective of the information that they're sharing. And we also had to incorporate the changes. I work specifically on the Apple team with the new privacy laws that were put in place. We had to make sure we adhered to those policies. So we were able to use the geofence tracking from the device. And as long as the user grants us permission, we were able to send notifications when the established perimeter of a job site has been crossed, whether it's entered or exited, and to send them a notification saying, hey, you're switching projects or you left and you're still on the clock, would you like to clock out? And then from a click of a button, it would complete the time card for them and send it to the back end. And then they don't have to worry about their time.
Okay, technology is so interesting. I know for somebody on the outside of tech, like it's just so fascinating to me how things have evolved, right? And of course, you know, there's some things that haven't evolved, unfortunately. And so for both of you, I'm sure there have been times throughout your career where you have been the only Black woman tech professional in the room. And so how did you deal with that situation and what did you learn from it? And Kellie, I'll pass it to you first.
Definitely in the field that we're in, that can often be the case. So for me, it wasn't just in the workplace. That was me pretty much growing up, even in school. So that was a normal place to be in for me, sad to say. So early on, just developing those skills of making sure that your voice is heard. Sometimes that can be challenging. I definitely have been in different environments that did not respect that voice, and I could feel it. But making decisions on where I would go and being in places where I could be seen and I could be heard. Because yeah, that can definitely be a challenge, but like I said, not unfamiliar territory.
Perfect. And I want to pass the same question to you, Julina, as you know, I'm sure this is a very similar experience to what you've had to go through. So through your career in tech.
So I would say that that was a similar experience of mine as well. I grew up all through school, all through childhood, being the only Black woman in the room, whether it was either at an internship or in the classroom, just, it's not unfamiliar territory for me either. And so I will say one of the things that really stuck with me in that process was one, I had one colleague that was extremely disrespectful of my voice and who I was. And this is when I was much younger and really starting out my career. And I remember I said to him, he would consistently mispronounce my name on purpose. And while everyone else was saying it correctly, like he just really made it known that he did not feel that I deserved to be in the room. And so I said to him, because I heard a similar quote elsewhere from another interview that escapes my remembrance, if you can pronounce Dostoevsky, you can pronounce my name. And I said that when we were all in a room together in a meeting with all of our staff. And I feel like after that, his tone changed, and I really learned the lesson of asserting myself in the workplace while also being mindful of others and respectful. And so when you can assert yourself without degrading others, I feel like that's something that that consistently sticks with me even to this day, in the way that, I treat my employees or I treat anyone in my personal life.
This is such an incredible point that you make. And I wanted to ask you, with your team, how do you help them to understand that? Because I think, it's always, whenever you hear people talk about asserting your voice, it always feels difficult, right? Especially if you're coming from an underrepresented group, or maybe you're a woman working on a team of all men. It can feel a lot easier to say than to act upon. And so what advice do you give to your employees and to your team about feeling comfortable asserting their voice, or taking the steps to get comfortable asserting their voice?
So I always give, every time I onboard a new employee, I give the same speech every time. This is a no jerks environment. I do not tolerate toxic behavior in my personal life. I will not tolerate it in the professional world either. If you're going to work for me, if you're going to work with my people, you're going to respect them no matter what their age is. Because I find that my younger employees, they have that problem of asserting themselves. And so they'll remain quiet. And I really establish ground rules for how we interact with each other, how we interact with our mission partners or with our customers, and saying that your voice is valid no matter who you are, where you come from, no matter, your gender, your race, your religion, your ethnic background, no matter how you identify, your voice is valid and I will always support you. And I feel like I say these things to them because these are the words I wish I had heard when I was first starting out in the workplace. And all of those negative interactions that I had when I was younger, when I was first starting out, I really want to be the voice that helps someone else to not go through those same negative experiences. And that's something that's very important to me.
Thank you for sharing that. And Kelly, I saw you shaking your head, so I'd love to pass the mic to you, see if you have a response to that.
Definitely, I echo what Julina was saying, and I would say, and I've said this to others, you have to be your own advocate, and find others that will support you in that cause. Always expecting that someone else will do things for you, speak up for you. There are people that will do that. I'm one of those people that I do like to speak up for others, because I speak up for myself. That's a personality thing. And everybody, some people are more prone to speak up for themselves, but some are not. But you still need to find your voice. And you can do that through a lot of channels. That doesn't mean always speaking out in a meeting, but there are still ways that you can advocate for yourself. You can advocate for yourself by picking the projects you work on, or the career track, who you choose to mentor you, that you can advocate for yourself. And so I definitely would say that's what you need to do. Be your biggest cheerleader.
Can I add to that? Sorry. I think you make all very valid points, and I would say 100% I agree. When you're looking for mentors, I would say don't just find a mentor, find an advocate. I would say that one of the most powerful tools I had in my career was I found people that would get me in the room and that would allow my voice to be heard, because they knew that no matter where I was going to, I brought my talent, I brought my knowledge. And at no point, and maybe it's just because I am very comfortable with speaking up now, that you have to, beyond advocating for yourself, that attitude is going to get you opportunities. And once the opportunity comes, pry the door open and, just walk through it and know that you belong there.
I love this. And I want to ask you both something, right? Because for me, it feels like there's a fine line between allyship and advocacy, right? Because allyship could be supporting, but maybe not speaking up about things, right? And it feels like advocating is really like putting somebody's name on the line and saying, I know there's an open job and I want to push this person to get into the space. And so I wanted to ask you both, how you've encountered allyship and advocacy in your careers. And then also in regards to that, like, how have you seen DEI in the tech industry evolve over the course of your career?
That was a good question, Nicole. With the allyship versus advocacy, I like to think about, and not getting into any political things, but I remember, I don't know her name. She plays soccer, professional soccer. And I remember when Kaepernick was doing the thing, taking a knee. And she chose to take a knee at a soccer match. And she says it is, I'm loosely translating her words, it's not my place to basically take the lead, but I can support. And I just thought that was very symbolic and very fitting in a lot of things in life. It's also knowing your lane. My husband is Caucasian, and so we have a lot of different conversations. And I appreciate the support that he gives me and the insight in our conversations, but also knowing that there's certain things that he doesn't need to be the spokesperson for, right? Just offering that support. In the workplace, there are different things definitely that you can advocate. You can push people, and it's not overstepping the bounds. Since I've been, especially at Procore, I've had wonderful managers that have advocated on my behalf, in a sense, like campaigned and made opportunities available to me. And not just supporting what I was doing. There's a clear difference, I think. But again, they, as Julina mentioned, they like pry doors open and just put it out there, put me in a challenging situation that I could then take advantage of myself. So I've definitely seen even growth in that area since my days at Procore, and definitely compared to previous companies that I worked for, where it was almost non-existent. It was a non-topic.
And Julina, I would love to pass the same question to you. So, you know, the difference in the line between allyship and advocacy, and then also kind of how you've seen that tie into DEI in the tech industry and how you've seen that evolve over your career.
So I think that's a fantastic question. So early in my career, I was in the private sector, and I was living in New York. And I will say that advocacy and allyship were not very prominent in my career or in my professional life until I decided to work for the government. And I find that the attitudes towards allyship, specifically in the Department of Defense, there's a massive push for diversity and inclusion, respectful work environments, and really having those difficult conversations around that exact same question. How do we, looking at all of the data from across, 10, 20 years of our work, and looking at how different groups tend to be more successful than others. And you find that there's been a change in the culture and the way that we speak about these things. And so it's giving people opportunities to shine in their strengths while also continuing our mission work. And so I've seen a huge move towards strengths-based leadership. So I will say that for me particularly, I found an advocate where she saw my potential. She gave me an opportunity, and she consistently gives me opportunities to engage our senior leadership, to engage with our mission partners, and really push my technical agendas and how we can better support our mission partners, our analysts, and our military folks. So that they can understand that the way that we think about technology, the way that we implement and use our technical capabilities, how do we modernize that while also maintaining our strategic advantages? How do we think about technology? And really, she gave me the opportunity to shape those conversations, and helping those senior officials look at our technical capabilities differently than they were before. And so I think when it comes to allyship, we have affinity group, like our Black councils, our Asian and Pacific our Asian and Pacific Islander groups. I look at that as allyship. I look at advocacy as how do you put someone in the room and allow them to grow?
Yes, such an awesome point. So thank you both for your answers. And we had a question that came in the chat, and I want to encourage people to keep submitting your questions. But Julina, you talked about before, being assertive while being respectful of others. And so we had a question that came in was, how can you be assertive without being perceived as aggressive?
That is a great question. It took me a lot of years to strike that balance. I find that the one thing that's helped me a lot is, and I feel like this is just inherent in being a woman, the moment your tone changes, people call you emotional, they call you aggressive. And so when I find myself in a situation, I was recently called a silly girl at work. I decided not to engage the individual. I smiled and I laughed and I put together my talking points, and I let my feelings be known to my leadership, saying, this recently occurred. And I'm constantly, and I don't know if this is just because growing up as a woman, as a Black woman specifically, I'm hyper cognizant of the way that I'm perceived. And it's something that I continuously need to work on. I think that before I engage in a difficult conversation, I put a list together of all of the things I want to get across. It's always a bullet point. And then I look at it again and think to myself, do I honestly want to say this out loud? It's the same thing. I have a rule, never send an email when you're angry. It will save you every time. But I don't think there's a single answer to that. I think that we have a course at work called Difficult Conversations. And that had helped me out a lot in terms of letting my voice be heard. When someone tries to speak over me, I keep talking. It's those small microaggressions, those small things that people do at work where I choose not to engage because I don't want to be perceived as being aggressive or angry. And I find that having a monotone voice has helped me out a lot, and sarcasm too, but I say use that sparingly. That's a hard question. Thank you for putting me on the spot for that one.
No worries, you did fantastic. You really did fantastic. I think I really appreciated the advice about not sending an email when you're angry, because how many times have we been there, right? We're like, I am so mad and I really just want to get my point across. So thank you. And I would love to pose the same question to you, Kellie. So how can you be assertive without being perceived as aggressive?
For me, I think it's being very thoughtful and very deliberate. What I mean by that is in my words and empathetic. So when I'm like Julina mentioned, I'm in the middle of a PR, someone says something that I don't necessarily get or like, and I have a knee jerk to type something, but then I pause and examine it. And I have to be thoughtful and think about, what am I trying to get from them? What do they need to get from me? So it helps me to be deliberate in what I'm trying to convey in my thoughts. If they're thinking, because someone did say that to me at work, you're being emotional. My eyes got huge. And what I was trying to convey is I'm passionate. I take pride in what I do. I'm not always right. And I lay no claim to that. But if this is a conversation we're trying to help each other, let's help each other. And not attack each other. So I try to think about that when I convey thoughts. I try to be receptive to feedback. If what I've said is not understood or it's misunderstood, I try to pause and think, how can I rephrase so that the intention is not lost? Because at the end of the day, I'm not trying to, it's not a power play. I'm not trying to do it for that reason. So I keep that in mind too. What are my intentions? But I use humor a lot when I feel I've been slighted. Humor is just my go-to for everything. I like laughing. I like being fun, but it also is a way for me to release some of the tension as well. So that can help in situations too.
I love this. Okay, thank you. And yes, humor is always a good default. And so I would love to talk about this as we have a few minutes left. If you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be? And Julina, I know that you already sort of spoke about this, but I would love for you to repeat that, or if there's a different piece of advice that you would like to provide. And then how can people keep up with you and follow you if, that's something you're with, of course. So if you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice, what would
I would say keep your hobbies. Don't stop fostering those things, your passion projects, the things that you love. I spent a lot of time developing things that I was interested in. I was fascinated by astronomy and physics, knitting, and also needlepointing. And those were hobbies that I had. And unfortunately, I started working. I let all of those hobbies fall off. Thankfully, because of COVID, I've been able to, re-engage those hobbies. And I realized that creative outlet is something that's so important. I love tech. I love tech. I taught myself how to code. I've taught myself Japanese. but it's like those things that you love more than anything, don't let life take away those things that bring you joy. And then, I'm sorry, what was B portion to your question?
If you wanted to provide anywhere where people could follow up with you, maybe if you have a blog where you talk about learning Japanese, I don't know, that is very cool. But of course, anything that you might have to share with anyone.
I actually don't really have a presence on the internet. Let me get back to you on that. Yes.
No worries at all. Sometimes it's kind of nice to not be in the public eye as well. So Kelly, I would love to pass it to you as well. So if you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be, and where people can follow up with you?
I had thought about this question because of the list of questions. I actually thought this was like one of the hardest ones. And then I was thinking, I would tell myself, if I went back in time, that you are enough. We've heard that phrase and it really hit me because it was a recurrent thread that whenever I had self-doubt, whether it's imposter syndrome or anything, it was because I didn't feel I was enough. And even now, I can slip into that, but I can quickly get myself out of that. So I would definitely tell myself you are enough so that I could start believing it. And I think that's very important, that people tell themselves that you are enough. That doesn't mean that you are currently all that you ever will be, but it does mean that right now you have whatever you need to do whatever you need to do. And if that's going out and getting new skills, that's fine. You are enough. And I think that's just very important. It's still very important to me. And I definitely would give myself that piece of advice.
I love this. Well, I want to say thank you to both of you for your time today, for sharing your expertise, for sharing some of this advice, and really just want to thank the both of you. So, and thank you to the audience for tuning in and commenting and asking your questions.